Hello and welcome to this videocast and podcast for subscribers to davidicke.com. And I'm in Estonia, about 40 minutes drive from the capital, Tallinn. And behind me is the Amari Air Base, which is very relevant in this time because it's a Nato base in Estonia. Estonia, of course, bordering Russia. And we have this Operation Atlantic Resolve, where the propaganda against Russia and how Russia is going to invade border countries has led to this build-up, the justification of this build-up of NATO resources and the NATO military operation in these border countries like Estonia. And the demonization of Russia has become so insanely ludicrous and so blatant in the sense of what it's trying to achieve. If you can make people fearful of something, whatever it is, in this case, fear of Russia, then they will not protest and even support the fact that you will take action to protect them from what you've manipulated them to fear. And so everything now is the Russians. We've got a situation where in the United States we have the emails that were leaked, which were of course devastating to the campaign of Hillary Clinton. And that was blamed on the Russians. The Russians are interfering with, as these military vehicles go past, the Russians were interfering with the American election. When, in fact, the evidence produced was zilch. And then people say that, okay, we have all these American agencies that are saying the same, like the FBI and so on. They're saying the same, that it was the Russians that was involved in it. But then you say, well, hold on a minute. These agencies were all controlled by the same people. And therefore, they're all singing from the same script, the same propaganda script that is trying to sell the line about Russia. And of course, it's going on in Europe. It's going on in terms of the demonization of Russia in these border countries and the rest of Europe, but particularly here, to the point where this Operation Atlantic Resolve has kicked in. And talking to people in Estonia and talking to people about their friends' reaction to all this, it's very clear that there are large numbers of people who have actually bought this idea of the Russian threat, when in fact you look at the history of NATO since the Second World War, and what you have is NATO is the threat to peace. What is NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is supposed to protect this area of the world? What is it doing bombing civilians in Libya? What is it doing through its constituent parts being involved in these wider conflicts in the Middle East? NATO is not there to protect people from the Russian threat. It's there as a war machine to impose the will of the hidden hand which controls it. People like NATO, organizations like NATO, the EU and what have you, they're all, in the end, controlled by the same people. And we've been talking on the streets of Tallinn, the Estonian capital, to people to see their reaction to what's going on and their reaction to the propaganda about Russia and the attempts to make them fear and thus accept an ever greater NATO presence in this part of the world.
Can I get your opinion on the sort of impending threat of Russia to the Estonian community?
It's hard to say where it's going at the moment, because in Estonia we have a few political parties that are Russian-minded, and also the things going in the USA. I think that the threat is never going to go away, and it's going to stay, but when Russia's going to make a move on Estonia, we don't know.
This huge amount of propaganda poured into the heads of our people on the daily and nightly basis, it's been successful, and people, they know that aggressor and the invader is on the east side of our border, and nobody even cares about that. And if you ask the common people, they don't care, because they have a lot of difficulties to face them in everyday life. So it's just, I don't think it's serious.
In the West, particularly in America and Britain, there's a massive propaganda and demonisation of Russia, basically trying to fear people into the fact there's an attack imminent. Is there that feeling here in Estonia?
We've always had that feeling, but since we got free from Russia in 25 years ago, then since that time everybody's always talking that there's a big threat, but actually we haven't seen any big moves from their side, so I think people are calming down, because nothing actually has happened in like the past 25 years. So many big things.
Well, actually, so far we've been dealing only with propaganda, which makes the world only black and white, and basically wanting to, let's say, 90 even more percent, the propaganda has been telling us that Putin is about to invade Estonia any minute, and we should be prepared for that, and especially we should be depending on our NATO allies. And, well, I don't think, personally, I don't think that it's the right approach, and there are no signs, documented signs, that Putin is preparing an invasion to anywhere. Because if people are telling about Ukraine, there's been no invasion, and even in NATO, great leaders, big leaders, a la Fuzov and others, admirals, they've been telling that in Ukraine, let's say, the legal government is not facing and fighting against Russian federal troops. There are some volunteers from all over the world there, but and the same is here. So far we've been hearing only what it is, let's say, propaganda, and no analysis whatsoever.
How strong is the propaganda on the media here, trying to scare people into the fact that big bad Russia are going to come and invade again?
I think it's very strong, because I think who listen every day mainstream media, they are scared.
Well, in the West, in Britain and America, we've had a lot of propaganda against Russia, and Putin in particular, trying to paint him as a modern day Stalin. Yeah. What's been the response to the propaganda here in Estonia? Are people scared? Are people actually buying the propaganda against Russia?
I think people are buying the propaganda very much. Estonian people is saying in Estonia, if it's written on newspaper, it must be true.
So there are some views of Estonians on how they see the current situation with regard to the NATO build-up in their country, and indeed other countries bordering Russia. And just come a mile down the road from that NATO airbase, and here is a cemetery, a military cemetery from the time of the Soviet Union, which of course occupied Estonia. And it brings it home. Just a mile apart, you've got those that are engaging in war, and those who came to an end as a result of military actions. And we have allowed the world to be taken over by the most extreme psychopathic mind. And when you see the number of people who have been killed and maimed, both military and civilians, decade after decade after decade. This world has been constantly at war. You look at the history of wars involving the United States alone since 1776. It's absolutely shocking. So, why is it happening? Why, here again, are we building up and pushing towards another conflict, this time with Russia, which of course will bring China in as well? Why is that mayhem and death and destruction happening day after day in the Middle East, year after year after year? Because the psychopathic, insane people that we have allowed to take this world over are deciding that that is how it's going to be. And had Hillary Clinton been elected as President of the United States, this war with Russia would have definitely kicked off. It might still do so with Donald Trump. And I hope that the conciliatory things that he said with regard to conflict in Russia are followed through. But with Donald Trump, he reverses what he says and what he thinks so often, then we've got to wait and see, not take his word for it. And it's not encouraging when you've got Trump in his election campaign talking about a massive increase in the United States military. It's also already vastly in proportion greater than something like 7 other countries combined, including China and Russia. I mean, how much military does the United States want? But of course, it's not the United States military. It's the military of the hidden hand. And all this money, this extraordinary level of spending while Americans sleeping the streets, that is spent on the military, is not for the benefit of the United States. It's for the benefit of that works through the United States, that works through its presidents, that works through its military and its Pentagon. And these are the people we've given the world away to, and we need to take it back. So, is it really too much of an ask that instead of demonizing Russia, that those in power sit down and come to an agreement with Russia, come to a situation, for instance, where Russia and the countries of Europe and the United States combine together to sort out the United States, UK-created terrorists in the Middle East and bring that horror to an end. If they were reasonable people who generally wanted to bring it to an end, that would have happened already. But they're not. Putin seems very accommodating and intellectually is far more intelligent than the Western world leaders combined. I'm not saying that he's God's gift to humanity and, you know, he runs tea parties for kids. He's obviously a ruthless man, or he wouldn't have been running Russia for so long. But neither, although the propaganda would like us to believe it, neither is he Stalin. Neither is Russia now the old Soviet Union. And the offer is there for the West to come to an accommodation with Russia so we can all get on with our lives. I hope Trump like I say, follows through with what he's saying, and that happens. But in the background, the hidden hand won't want it to happen, because the hidden hand wants World War III, because that's been planned all along. 3 world wars to transform the nature of human society. The first 2 world wars transformed the nature of human society. Look what happened. And they want to complete the job with World War III. That was always the plan. And this is what this demonization of Russia is all about. So we, as the people, the human race, billions of us, who face the consequences of what these insane people in the shadows are doing, need to understand how the game's played, and no longer to accommodate it, no longer play a part in it, no longer meekly walk along saying, yes sir, no sir, they must know what they're doing. They don't. Except that they do know that they're seeking to bring about yet another world conflict. So we need to get informed about what's really happening, because these events are not random. What's happening down the road from here with the Nato build-up in Estonia is not random. It's part of a long-term plan to bring about yet another horrific global war. And we, this time, need to say it's not going to happen. And we're not going to give our support to it. And we're not going to allow the politicians and the military to any longer be the vehicle of this hidden hand and do its bidding, because we're not having it. I mean, how many more graves is it going to take before the world and its people take power back over their own society and stop these mad men and women devastating it year after year after year? Left alone, the vast majority of people in this world could live together. But with the hidden hand constantly manipulating, divide and rule, playing one part of society off against another, playing one race off against another, playing one religion off against another, has created a situation where it seems that we can't live together. But left to our own devices, we could, if that hidden hand and its public agents, if you like, were no longer allowed to do what they've done generation after generation after generation. We need to be the people that bring it to an end by no longer buying the propaganda, by seeing through it, and by saying we are not having it anymore.